once again, we would like to welcome Ashleigh from the Kern County Museum. How are you today, Ashleigh?
Doing well.
So you have been with the Kern County Museum for a long time, and you have been kind enough to bring some antiquities from the museum and talk to us about how they apply to math. And I think you're doing a little gaming today, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, I think you've got a few games. So Scott and Evie are over there, so take it away.
What do you got? We got a whole bunch of fun stuff here going on today.
Oh yeah, we do.
Old and new.
Yes, so all of these are from early 1900s, 1910s.
Okay.
But they all can all be dated back to like ancient times. Pretty much a version of these have all been found at different sites back to ancient Greece,
Right.
India, all of those.
So some classic games.
Very classic,
Right.
played by children for millennia.
Okay.
The first one that we'll go ahead and show is jacks, also known as knuckle bones, because that was what they used to play with. And so
Okay.
It wasn't metal, it was actual like sheep knuckle bones. Of course, I don't have that.
That's kind of wild.
have
All right.
metal jacks here. So usually 6 pointed items like this. And usually, as you can see with our modern day,
So this is something you can pick up at the
Comparison
store now, right? It's just
Yeah.
a little bit shinier version.
yeah, shinier, a little bit lighter. These ones have a little bit more weight to it.
Right.
And obviously, I'm missing the ball.
Right.
That comes
Right.
with
So it would have been
that
interesting to
set.
know. I mean, this is very synthetic material for a bouncing ball, right? But it would have
Right.
been interesting to know what they use there. A rock maybe wouldn't bounce so much, but maybe something like you said, if it was knuckle bones from a sheep, maybe there was something else from an animal.
Right, and different forms of jacks have been played where nowadays it's you throw up the ball and you have to catch it before it bounces.
there you go.
Sometimes they would play with the jacks and actually throw the jacks up.
Okay.
And have it try and catch it before it fell.
Gotcha. So maybe not necessarily bouncing as much.
Yes.
Right. And tell me a little bit about what kind of math could you do in there? Obviously, we can count the jacks, right?
Right. Obviously, you count the jacks, but once you could had the skills to be able to, you were skilled enough with it, you could do patterns. So once a ball had bounced or you'd thrown it up, you could try and catch 4 at a time.
Oh, okay.
And
Gotcha.
then 4 again, and then catch
maybe
the last 2.
while you throw the rock or the ball, someone could say how many to grab.
Exactly.
Right in the middle of it. Okay. I like it. There's a lot of options there.
Right, and you always had 10 jacks, or sometimes if there was multiple people, they would pool those, so you'd have maybe more than 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal. All right. I like it. And what else do we have? There's so many things to look at here. Looks like some tops maybe, right?
Yes, so we've got as well some antique spinning tops. If you're familiar, if you've ever played with tops when you were little, I did certainly, but I never played them with the string, which is historically what they were played with.
Okay.
They would be wrapped around. You would wrap a string around it, and then this would be your way. As once this string was all wrapped around it, you would basically pull this, and you'd throw it, pull, and it would fly and then spin.
There you go. So what kind of things you could do with that? Evie, you got to give it a try, right? With these new ones here. You could take that top and just give it a spin and see how long it goes. Of course, one of the things you could do, light up one too, I like it. One of the things you could do is with your opponent, maybe see who could spin it the longest.
Exactly.
Right? And you can add some things in there, maybe put some rough edges on the outside and see if they can knock each other out of a square or something like that.
So very similar. I don't know if you're familiar with, I think it's an anime now, but Beyblade, that has a very similar idea.
Okay.
Spinning top of trying to figure out who spins longest, battles against it. Very similar. But a very common one was to see which one lasted longest, and I would say you won. So well done.
Definitely good spin, for sure. And those, to me, look like they're made out of wood, but of course,
Yes.
if you were skilled enough, you could make them out of stone, you could make them out of bone, you could make them out
Absolutely,
of other
yeah.
materials, right, depending on what was around.
Yes.
And it seems like a lot of these games we're looking at today probably have to do with what materials were in someone's possession, what they had available to them, and they can make a game out of them.
Yes, absolutely. So very similar to how this was originally bones. So too were marbles.
Marbles, there you go.
So most of the marbles here you'll notice are of a different, so you have glass marbles.
Right.
I've got stone,
Different sizes.
clay, some of them are glass, etc.
Yeah, and you could totally make them out of wood as well, sure, right?
Yes, absolutely. So wood, I have cement ones at home that I played with.
Okay.
Very similar. Again, you could make them out of bone.
And the idea of marbles, right, you take the big one and try to knock the other ones out or
Yes,
something like that?
so that's the most classic version of marbles.
Right.
Ring ta or just marbles in general. You'd have the larger one.
I don't know. My marble skills back in the day, not so good, right? I got to work on that a little bit. But I think one of the things that I'm thinking about, depending on what materials you had again, would be it would really teach some young children a little bit more about their surroundings, right? So you
Yes.
have different densities of marbles, whether it's bone or wood or metal or stone, and you'd have to hit that marble a little bit harder to knock it out of the area, right? Depending on what material it was made out of.
Yeah, with marbles in particular. So the way that you play marbles is, like we've said, you'd get a larger one, and you'd angle it, and you'd want to flip it. I won't flip this one because this one is one of our
Gotta
antiques.
make sure we take care of it.
But with the larger glass one right here, you'd use your thumb. This was at least the British way of doing it.
Okay.
And whoop, whoop.
There you go. Yeah,
Oh, bad,
there you go.
sorry.
Maybe not on the table so much, but I understand the idea for sure. And then I know back in the day when I used to play, when I was little, the ones you knocked out, you got to keep, whether they were yours or not.
Right. So you could, obviously, with the different games that you played, there was keepsies. So
Yeah.
that was if you knocked the marble out, you got to keep it. Otherwise, you could say, oh, we're not playing for keepsies. We'll just see who can get the most.
Right.
Practice type of thing.
There you go.
But obviously, the gentleman who these marbles belong to definitely played for keepsies a lot.
So he's got a lot going for him.
I've got quite a couple more marbles from
Yeah.
this gentleman as well.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to look at one more because you can't talk about old school toys unless you talk about the Slinky. And maybe they didn't have them back then, but you know that the Slinky is a design that has not changed over the years, right? And once you get it going, it really is fun to see what it can do there. It can teach young people all about momentum, all about some potential energy, some kinetic energy, and some ideas there with a design that not only is kind of fun to play with, right, but it also is something that hasn't changed for a really long time, kind of like some of the games that you've shown us here today. So I appreciate you coming in today. Those were really neat to see.
Yeah, thanks for
So
having me.
thank you once again, Ashleigh, for bringing in all those different toys. And I know that we want to say a big thank you to John for setting up the Slinky stairway right there, because that did take a little bit of work to figure out how far apart and the height they had to be for that Slinky to work properly. So Ashleigh, thank you once again for coming in from the Kern County Museum and sharing some more antiquities of math. We'll be back with more right after this.